Well, hello, I'm Dave Mathews from Spark of Life. We walk beside those who are grieving, who have experienced devastating loss, trying to help them live forward with their pain after loss. Perhaps you're there right now. This is a grief tip of the day. Have you ever heard of Domino Day? Domino Day is an actual day, and it's usually in November, and it's a day in which people try to break the world record for domino, falling and all that stuff. And in the Netherlands back in 2009, I think it was November 13th, 2009, and this comes from a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. This is the grief tip of the day, okay? The grief tip of the day, it can really change your approach to how you recover from anything. How do you get through with the pain of losing the dearest on earth to you, for example? I want to share with you today something very incredible. Domino Day, you know the domino effect. Well, the world record for dominoes that have fallen in one thing is set in the Netherlands by this Domino production company. They want to sell dominoes. So I guess they buy dominoes from themselves in the Netherlands. 4,491,800 and I think 92 dominoes. You're impressed that I can remember that number? I'm impressed with myself. Over 4.5 million dominoes, and you knock over the first and then it just goes. I thought about showing you a video, but I didn't have time for that. So this is outlined in this book by Gary Keller called The One Thing. I was reading this going to a grief recovery retreat. We've done 106 grief recovery 3-day retreats for people all over the world. And it's just an incredible experience to bring grievers together who are really hurting and seeing them have hope for the first time in a long time. It's really an incredible thing. I love those who are grieving. Sorry for what you're going through. But I want to share this tip with you. According to Gary Keller, the amount of energy that was released when 4 million dominoes started to fall, one hit the other. I've learned a new word. It's joules of energy. Do you know what a joule of energy is? Joules. I know what a joule of energy is because I got online and I Googled it. And it's energy, and it's something to do with Isaac Newton and an apple or an arrow or something, but they call Newton. You physics majors out there will know this, so I'm really impressed by myself here that I know what a joule is. Some say it's the joule, D-J-O. But anyway, the joule of energy, it's the amount of energy in 1 second that's generated by some force. When 4 million dominoes are released, it's 94,000 joules of energy by these dominoes. And I don't know, it's not some guy in his basement that didn't have anything to do in the Netherlands, and maybe it's cold. And if you're from the Netherlands, I want to buy a coat from you. I think it's colder there than it is in the South. But anyway, it's not some guy in his basement that decided one day to buy 4.5 million dominoes and set them up in his basement. No, this is done by a production company. 95,000 or 4,000 joules of energy is the equivalent to some human being doing 545 push-ups. Now, personally, I've never met anybody that did 545 push-ups at one time. My maximum number, this is serious, I'm somewhat near 60 years of age, a little older than that, but I'm closer to 60 than I am to 81, so you figure out how old I am. In all my years of living, vast amount of years of living, I think I got up to 10 push-ups once. 10 push-ups is my limit. I don't know who does 545 at one time. Probably that guy in high school that made everybody mad. Yeah. But the equivalent of that. So what does that have to do with grief? What does it have to do with grief recovery? Well, here's the deal. In Gary Keller's book, physicist or scientist or somebody with an ist at the end of their name, has determined that a domino can knock over another domino 1.5 times its size. So if you start with a 2-inch domino, about that big, it can knock over a 3-inch domino, which can knock over a 4.5-inch domino, which can knock over, something over 4 inches. And it keeps going. If you started with a 2-inch domino and every succeeding domino was 1.5 times bigger, by the 10th domino, if you started with 2 inches, The domino would be as tall as Peyton Manning. I don't know why Gary Keller picked Peyton Manning at the time he wrote the book. Peyton was probably a pretty good quarterback. He's not any good anymore because he doesn't play anymore, but he does great commercials. But here Peyton Manning is probably 6'2" or whatever he is, 6'4". I don't know how tall he is. I'm personally 6'8", but I'm shrinking. I'm now down to 5'11". But anyway, if you go to the 18th domino, if you started with 2 inches, the 18th domino in this succession would be as tall as the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy. The 23rd domino would be as tall as the Eiffel Tower. The 31st domino would be 3,000 feet higher than Mount Everest. The 57th domino would be as tall as from the earth to the moon. So, David, what does this have to do with grief recovery? Think about it. Every griever we've dealt with, we've done 1,400 grievers have come to our retreats. That means we've spent 3.5 days with about 1,400 grievers, and my wife and I have probably done 90 of those 106 retreats, and our team has done so many helping us and then on their own. These grievers come overwhelmed. How can I get out of this pit of grief? I've lost the dearest on earth to me. And how in the world can I even get up in the morning, much less live forward? Our tagline at Spark of Life is living forward instead of existing forward. We want to help people live forward with their pain. I can't take away your pain. Spark of Life or any other grief organization cannot take away your pain. There's no magic bullet. Grievers have to grieve. So I have to give myself permission to grieve, but I also have to give myself permission to recover, defining recovery as living forward with my pain. And though life will never be the same again, life can still be rich, fulfilling, and meaningful, and yes, even full of joy again. So David, what does the domino effect have to do with living forward? It has everything to do with it. If I want to get to the moon in my recovery, if I want to have a life full of joy again, I got to, number one, believe I can have it. I don't understand how, when my heart's broken, and I've been there, you've been there, I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. The domino effect says all I have to do today is knock over that dadgum 2-inch domino. If I want to get to the moon in my recovery, I can't try to get to the moon today. I might just have to set my alarm an hour earlier and get out of bed a little bit earlier and go wash my face. That's all I can do today. That's knocking over the 2-inch domino. It's amazing what Keller, by the way, have I shown you the book? I get nothing if you buy this book. I just want you to know. Maybe Keller will one day call me and say thank you, but I want to read this to you. He says, and he's not talking about grief recovery. He's talking about life. He's talking about accomplishing your goals. He's talking about if you want to lose weight, if you want to make more money, if you want to be better at what you do, better at your marriage or repair a marriage. He's talking about life, and it all applies to grief. It so applies to grief. Listen to what he says. Topping dominoes is pretty straightforward. You line them up and you tip over the first one. In the real world, though, it doesn't work like that. It's a bit more complicated. When you apply it to grief and somebody's lost the dearest on earth to them, yeah, it gets complicated, doesn't it? The challenge in life, the challenge is that life doesn't always line up neatly. Grief recovery is messy. It's not a straight line. So the analogy of the dominoes and grief recovery falls short on many levels, but there's a principle here that can help you today live forward with your pain. And I want to read this. Here's where you should start. Highly successful people know this. Every day they line up their priorities anew, find the lead domino, and whack away at it. Spark of Life retreats, we have an exercise we do with people. We have them turn their anchors into sails by writing the one thing they need to do to continue a healthy recovery when they leave the retreat. In other words, when you get home, what's one thing you need to do? What is the one thing you need to do? The one thing. We have had people say the one thing I need to do is get up before noon. They have actually arisen before noon at the retreat because we start at 8 o'clock for breakfast. If they don't get there, they don't get to eat a fabulous breakfast at our retreats. But that's knocking over the 2-inch domino. Another person said, I'm going to go back to church. I've been so hacked and mad at God. I didn't want to go to church. I didn't want people asking me how I was doing. I was sick of that question. But I think I'll go to church. That's them knocking over their 2-inch domino. Another person said, I'm going to go dancing again. My husband and I love to go dancing, and since he died 2 years ago, I can't go dancing. It's too many triggers, but I want to go back on that dance floor. I want to remember the good times with my husband. Another person said, I got to go in my daughter's room. Their daughter had died in a tragic accident, and the father had never been back to his baby girl's room. He needed to go in that room and sit at that bed. That was him knocking over the 2-inch domino. I've got to start somewhere. And I got to keep restarting. So every day, get up and knock over a 2-inch domino. Don't knock over the domino that goes from here to the moon. You'll bang against that domino and it won't budge. I guarantee it won't budge, but knocking over the one. Now listen to this. Why does this approach work? This is page 16 of Gary Keller's book. I want to give it, have I mentioned this is Gary Keller's book? Okay. Because extraordinary success is sequential. It's not simultaneous. What starts out linear, I want you to get this in grief work. What starts out linear becomes geometric. You do the right thing, and then you get up the next day and do the next right thing. Over time, it adds up, and the geometric potential of success is unleashed. The domino effect applies to the big picture, like your work or your business, and I will add there, like your grief recovery. And it applies to the smallest moment in each day when you're trying to decide what to do next. Success builds on success. And as this happens over and over, you move toward the highest success possible. Wow, I got this starred. The key is over time. Success is built sequentially. It's one thing at a time. In our grief work, people come, we meet people and we do these retreats. Now we're doing online retreats. And they're going to be just as powerful as the in-person. They're same exact thing. September 17th, go to sparkalife.org. And man, we have an online course that you get 3 coaching sessions with a certified grief recovery specialist who has been at our retreats. They've led retreats. They've helped people over and over again. They've experienced loss. We have this online course that comes. We have the online retreat. 20 people come together on Zoom. We've got coaching you can buy. This stuff really works because you've got to believe you can have life again before you really have it. And you can't start by climbing to the moon today. You start by knocking over the 2-inch domino. You do the next right thing. And when I experience loss, I cannot even imagine living life happy again. I've been there. Have you been there? You might be there right now. I can't even imagine it. So if I wait till my emotions feel like it, I might not ever get out of bed, figuratively. I might not ever get out of the house. I might ruin other relationships that are important to me, and I might live a life that's very dysfunctional. Now, grief takes its hold on us, and we've got to give ourselves permission to grieve. We talk about that at our retreats. We talk about that on other podcasts. We talk about permission to grieve. Give yourself that. Grievers have to grieve. Almost in the same breath, give yourself permission to recover, defining recovery, not as everything's great, no, but living forward with my pain, with that hole in my heart. That will never be completely all clean, and I'll have so much scar tissue, but I'll tell you what, I can get up and live forward by doing the next right thing. At our grief retreats, we give people that come a domino. It's in their bag of gifts they get, of little gifts. They're not that expensive. We don't give away diamond rings or something. Maybe we should. If anybody wants to donate that to Spark, we could. No, but we give away gifts like a domino. They have no idea why the domino's in their bag. Now I'm giving the secret away, but the domino effect is so powerful. So Gary Keller writes in the book, what's the one thing you need to do today that the doing of which will result in you not doing other things? Some other things you need to do will become unnecessary if you do the one thing that you must do, or that makes the doing of other things easier to do. So what's the one thing you need to do today, the doing of which will make other things you need to do either unnecessary or a lot easier? What's the one thing? What's the 2-inch domino? Our work with thousands of grievers since 2009, through 3.5-day retreats when we get to know you so well during those retreats, and through grief workshops. We've done over 70 grief workshops at churches and businesses, organizations. The one thing grievers have taught us is there's always, always hope, even when you don't feel like it. So what do? I start out by knocking over that 2-inch domino. I'm Dave Mathews from Spark of Life. Visit us at sparkoflife.org. We want to walk beside you, the heartbeat of Spark of Life. The heartbeat is to walk beside grievers, supporting those who are grieving, giving great tools to those who are grieving. And number one, accepting you where you are, loving you as you are, helping you on this grief journey, walking with you. sparkoflife.org, where there's always, always hope.